Well, hey there, everybody. John Wagnon here with DevCentral, and this is the Security Sidebar live stream. This is our DevCentral Connects Security Sidebar. So where we talk about all kinds of security stuff, right? And I know I say this every week, but this time is going to be amazing. We're going to talk about 5G and the future of where that's headed and all that kind of stuff. We all want 5G, right? We see commercials about it all the time. It's going to be, it's on everybody's mind, right? So I have an awesome guest today from Dell Technologies, and she is a thought leader. She is an expert on all things 5G. And I tell you what, I am just excited. Before I bring her on really quick, just a reminder, next week, we've got the DevCentral Connect show, our normal 1 hour live, 12:30 Pacific. Jason is going to be out of town. So it's me and Peter Silva himself, the man, the myth, the legend, Peter Silva. So make sure you join us for that one. Also, it's going to be amazing. But back to today, let's talk about 5G. Let's talk about what it is, where it's going, and what we can do with it. So with that, let me introduce my guest today, Miss Jillian Kaplan from Dell Technologies. Well, Miss Jillian, it is an honor to have you here. Welcome to DevCentral Connects. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, so you are a 5G thought leader, security expert, all that stuff over at Dell. But rather than me explain to everyone kind of your background, why don't you tell us a little bit about, where you've come from, how you got here to this point, and maybe some of the cool stuff you're working on.
Sure. Yeah. So I have been in the telecom industry 17 years now, which is crazy. I started off in network engineering when Verizon first launched our FTTP, fiber to the prem product called Fios. It's crazy. That was feels like it was such new technology at the time. And obviously so much has developed since then. I worked in the central office engineering, mostly trying to get stuff on and off the books as we transitioned from copper to Fios and make sure the new equipment was accounted for and turning on and off stuff, central office stuff, right? And then I went and got an MBA and thought I wanted to get into something a little bit more creative than engineering, and settled on a product management role for a software product we had. And then went into sort of like a sales enablement, marketing operations type role, at which point I came over to Dell Technologies and had a very short stint in cloud product marketing, and then came over to the telecom and 5G product marketing team. And most recently on that team, I've taken on the role of 5G and telecom thought leadership.
That is fantastic. I tell you, I mean, what a great place to be, right? 5G telecom thought leader. That's right at the pointy end of the spear, the tip of the spear, cutting edge. I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Hey, and then as a little aside, really quick, I'm super excited to hear that you've done a little passion project with some. I'll call it a book or maybe just a publication of sorts. Maybe tell us a quick second about that. I'm excited.
Yes. I've been a woman in high tech my whole career, and I spent a lot of my career sitting around waiting for really good things to happen to me. Worked really hard, and I thought, well, as a result of that, I'll get promoted, I'll get where I want to be. But my mistake was I never actually told anyone what I wanted, and no one is a mind reader, right? And so I've started to develop something, what I call the art of the subtle brag. And I teamed up with another woman who I met on LinkedIn, actually. And we wrote a guide called The Unwritten Rules for Women in Tech. And it's all about how you can advance your career and really what you need to do as a woman in tech to do that. We talk about the art of the subtle brag. We talk about finding your cheerleader. We talk about how to deal with inappropriate advances, how to advance your career. And as a result of that, we've got another guide coming out with tips from some of the top women in the industry. And then we plan to put out a workbook where people can actually put the skills that they are learning to use, which is really exciting. These are all passion projects, kind of things that I do on the side to really help other women. The guides are ungated and totally free. So I'm happy to provide the links to those as well.
Yeah, hey, that's fantastic. Congratulations. And you're right. I mean, it's you do lots of great things just as a professional, but at the end of the day, you need to look out for yourself in the sense that you need to be your own advocate. And so yeah, it's great advice and great tips, man. That'll be a really really good read. I'm looking forward to it. So good stuff, man. Well, hey, so on 5G, so we want to talk about 5G today. And, like I said at the kind of earlier on, 5G is on everyone's mind. And you see these commercials, if I've got Verizon, it's like, hey, there's 5G everywhere. But since you're like right in the thick of things, I know you and I had a chance to talk before the show, and you had mentioned to me, you're like, John, here's the deal on 5G. I mean, while these service providers are providing 5G to their customers, where I've got my, cell phone or my whatever, my car's driving down the road, really the focus of a lot of these service providers is not really the end customer. It's more like the enterprise, like manufacturing and stuff like that. Is that true? Or maybe explain or expand on that just a little bit.
Sure. With previous generations of G, it was all about how many subscribers you needed, right? So how many subscribers do you want to turn up? What kind of server? What kind of storage? What does your data center look like in order to power up that many subscribers? But 5G is really about the enterprise use cases. So it's all about, to your point, manufacturing. We've got retail, we've got autonomous vehicles, we've got AR and VR. There's so many different industries that 5G is going to touch because of the low latency speeds and really how 5G can change these industries for the better. Healthcare is a great one. I know you brought up a little bit about that earlier. But it's really all about building these use cases out and making sure that these industries are enabled, because it's really interesting. And we've all noticed this, right? We say we're in the fourth industrial revolution. Even non-tech companies are having to become tech companies, right?
Yeah.
Like even if you're not, retailers, for example, right? Manufacturers, they're not tech companies, but in order to advance, they have to become tech companies, and 5G and edge and telecoms are going to be a massive part of that.
I tell you what a fascinating thing. You're exactly right. It's like regardless of what industry you're in today, you are a technology company. It's such an integral part of what you do. So yeah, I mean, it's like, it's one of these things, where you could say, hey, if you as a company don't really want to get into the whole technology thing, whatever, it's like, do that at your own peril, because that's the way the world has moved and is continuing to move quickly. And so you need to get on board, and 5G is where things are happening, right? So that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, hey, yeah. So to your point a second ago about like telemedicine and that kind of thing, I found a couple of stories out of China, interestingly, where one of them, and I'm just gonna look at this super quick. Huawei and China Unicom, there was this medical university over in China where doctors did surgery, like actual surgery, on patients that were like 50 kilometers away. It's about 30 miles away. Now, in this case, these were animals, and but they did like a liver surgery, on these animals, and it was successful. But they used 5G, like you mentioned, low latency, high speeds, all that kind of stuff. So I read that. I was like, man, number one, that's fascinating. And two, it's like, okay, I see where they're maybe starting with the animals or whatever, but maybe not to be outdone. Also in China, there was a group of, 12 patients. There was 5 males and 7 females that had spinal disorders, and doctors were able to, provide or do surgery, whatever, on these spinal patients. And they did like different screws in the spine and all that stuff. And fortunately, everything came out just fine. But those are 2 examples, at least in China, where they're already doing this remote surgery stuff. And you had mentioned just even within COVID, I think there's some other examples. I'm sure there's lots of examples, but is that right?
Yeah, I'd heard about some remote diagnostics that were being done because doctors didn't want to be in the same room as COVID patients. So It's very interesting to watch this stuff happen in real time, right? And see how technology, can you imagine going through the pandemic without technology?
Right. Right.
Forget about the surgery part, just like life in general and work.
That's right.
And we forget that it's, yeah, you turn on your computer, you turn on your TV, you forget that it's these communication service providers that are powering all of that. Like if you turn on your computer, it's not connected to a network. It can't do anything really, right? You can, maybe type a document, some Excel, right? But you
Right.
forget that it's this powerful network, wireless or wireline or whatever you're using, that is powering your devices.
That's right. I mean, we're so reliant on the network. It's to your point. If I were to fire up my laptop and there was no internet connection, what could I do? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I could pull up my calculator app and add 2 + 2. Like that's about it, and then I'd be like, okay, I'm done, kind of thing. So you're right. But 5G is that network. And, another fascinating thing that I just kind of was thinking through on some of these speeds that 5G has, and I know we'll talk like more industry and enterprise and that stuff, but from the consumer perspective, I've thought with some of these high speeds that 5G offers, if they come enough like to where I live, let's just say, and I pay my internet service provider right now for, let's say I pay them, for 500 megabit download speed or whatever it is, right? Well, then if 5G comes on top of that and says, hey, I can give you a gig or multiple gigs, over the 5G network, maybe I don't even need my internet service provider that I had before. Maybe now I'm just paying my, 5G provider, right? So that could be something. I don't know.
That's been a topic of discussion. It's definitely up in the air. I will say that. Like, I know that
Okay.
it's been a hot topic. It's not something that I don't think is like, but there's also Wi-Fi 6. So there's a lot of different factors that sort of come into that. But it's certainly been like, in the future, will networks be completely wireless?
Right.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I think it's a little early on that. And to that point, it's still very early in 5G, right? Like
Right.
it's not fully deployed the way that it needs to be. We're still building out these enterprise use cases. It's not something that happens overnight. It's this cloud built, like completely different architecture with we're building things out in the edge and in the cloud and not all in the data center. It's very different. And so it's going to be an evolution. We just talk about like the journey to 5G, and it's not something that's going to happen overnight. We also forget, like, there are some apps, for example, that like Uber couldn't have run on 3G, right? So like there are apps that have come about as generations, because that's what G stands for. A lot of people don't know that, fourth generation. As generations have come about, there are apps that are powered up. So like, what are the apps and what are the use cases of 5G going to be? Like, who knows? Like we talked about different industries, but we'll see how they evolve.
You're right. I mean, so things like Uber, or I don't know why my mind immediately went to like Uber Eats. Maybe that's because it's like the whole COVID, and I gotta have my food delivered or whatever, or DoorDash, or I mean, you name it, right? That it's like, hey, those have come about because of these high speed mobile networks, and it's exciting to think about, hey, what's on the horizon or what's over the hill here, as it were, that's waiting on us, as these things fully mature, the 5G networks. So one thing that I'd love to talk about too, I know you mentioned like enterprises with manufacturing, and there's autonomous vehicles, and I think about like the driverless Tesla driving around or whatever, that kind of stuff, right? But maybe to key in on that autonomous vehicle, I know you've got some previous history around that, or some personal touch related to that. So maybe talk to us about autonomous vehicles, or that whole side of 5G.
Yeah, so it's very interesting because my personal life and my work life have definitely collided, which I think is a amazing problem, I'll call it, to have. Like, I feel really grateful that I get to work on something that I'm so incredibly passionate about. Almost 5 years ago now, so it was August 2016, I was hit in a crosswalk at about 40 miles an hour by a distracted driver. And it was broad daylight. There were no conditions. It wasn't icy, August day. And I had an emergency brain surgery to save my life. And I shattered my pelvis, and I had multiple pelvis surgeries. I was not in good shape. And statistics say that less than 1 in 10 people survive crashes like I had. And people that do survive don't go back to living life before crash. And I really have. I have a traumatic brain injury I live with every day. I have stacks of note papers all around me so I can remember what the heck is going on half the time. But for the most part, I get to live what I'll call like a pretty normal life. And, the thought of autonomous vehicles, to me, at first, I thought to myself, well, I shouldn't be for those, like given what I've been through. That shouldn't be something that I was concerned with. So the first thing that I did was I found an agency, I should say, a nonprofit that works on distracted driving locally called Safe Roads Alliance. And I started to work with them because here in Massachusetts, we didn't have a hands-free bill, which means you could physically drive while holding your phone and it wasn't illegal in any way, shape, or form. Okay. So that's the first step that I took. Was I actually passed the hands-free bill with Safe Roads Alliance in November 2019 in the state, which was amazing. I never thought in my life I would pass a bill, but it was so cool to be there. But what I came to realize is that it's not enough. It's really not enough to like tell people to do it, because we're just not. Actually, in 2020, we had either the same or more deaths from like vehicular deaths and distracted driving deaths than we had in 2019, even though a lot of people were at home. We saw a lot more high speeds because the roads were very open. And that was really scary because like we had just passed this bill and we're still seeing crazy amounts of distracted driving. But the reality is that when you talk about autonomous vehicles, and just remember what I want to say about 5G about this too, because I think it's a really important point. 5G is a piece of the autonomous vehicle story. When you turn on 5G, not every vehicle is going to be autonomous, right? You've got to have vehicles built for that. You've got to have other infrastructure in place. It is a piece of the story, but it's not the be all end all. So just saying that before like it gets into, well, as soon as 5G, I can just let go of my steering wheel, right? Nope.
Right. Right. Yeah. Still grip the steering wheel, people. Right. Eyes on the road. No doubt.
We see it as like there are 5 levels of autonomy. One is like no autonomy at all. And then like, you get up to like cruise control, and like, 3 to 4 is kind of where we are now. You brought up the Teslas, like 3 to 4 is that. And then 5 is something that's fully autonomous in all conditions. But if I think about my crash where it was in a crosswalk, it was in broad daylight. If that vehicle was just a little bit autonomous, it would have seen me. Right.
Yeah.
And so I started to dig into research because, in my mind, I shouldn't have wanted autonomous vehicles, but like I just thought that way. But then when I looked at it, I actually did a lot of research with the National Safety Council to kind of see how autonomy affected other industries. And one of the stats that I found was like really staggering. And I wrote it down because I can't remember anything. In the past 30 years in manufacturing, for example, there's been 30 robot-related deaths, which means a robot malfunctioned and killed someone. But there's been 4,585 just human error deaths. Like that is a staggering difference, right? 27 to over 4,500. So I think that, we hear about accidents, crashes, I call them crashes with autonomous vehicles all the time. But what we don't hear about is how many crashes are prevented because of autonomous vehicles. And I do think that 5G has the capability as we move into autonomous vehicles to actually save lives. Because like I said, if we look at these other industries, we can see that, yes, like unfortunately, it's not 100%. And there is going to be a small margin of error, but machines don't look at their cell phone and get distracted or put on their makeup or do their hair. Right. And like I said, there's a small margin of error still, but it seems to be, statistically looking at history, a lot smaller margin of error than we have as humans. And so I think it's really important that we see 5G and these amazing possible capabilities that it could have for autonomous vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, it's so it's like the future is, man, it's out there and it's amazing. So that's really, really cool. That's really, and I gotta pop one comment up here really quick, Jillian, from Sarah Body, who's also over at F5. What's up, Sarah? Glad to see you out there today. She said, OMG, thank God you survived that crash. That's exactly right. That's what I was thinking too. and love you for doing this work. We need more people like you in this world making a difference, which is completely true. So just wanted to put that little shout out from Sarah. And if I might add, Jillian, I was able to find a video of you in the hospital, if I remember right. And you literally, so for all those viewers out there like watching this, Jillian's in the hospital, but like lifting weights, and staying in shape and all that. So, I mean, it sounds to me, I mean, you're an awesome inspiration to all of us, Jillian, but just, you look at a problem or a challenge and you say, hey, I'm not going to run away from this. I'm going to run right through this thing. Right.
Yeah, I think when crap happens to you, you really have two choices. You're like, well, that was terrible, and I'm just going to take it and do whatever with it and say like, well, so sorry for me. And I could probably sit on disability for the rest of my life, but that wasn't my choice. My choice was to get up and do something. And recovery was really hard. Like, I'm not going to tell you that it's not hard, wasn't hard for me. And it's hard for me every day because I don't know what's going on half the time. And sometimes it's embarrassing because I'm like, someone just told me that and I don't know what the heck they just told me. So I didn't write it down. Now I'm screwed. But I really I'm so passionate about this thought leadership role because I know that the impact and the good that technology can have in the world. And I think we make a mistake when we always look at the bad stuff, because sure, technology can create problems, but it can also solve them. And it can I truly do see life-saving capabilities in what 5G and this era of the fourth industrial revolution is going to bring.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome, man. Well, I mean, again, what an inspiration. I think we can all learn from that and say, hey, life's going to throw crazy stuff at you. And man, certainly it has at you. And we can make those choices. Are you going to sit and sulk, or are you going to do something about it? So yeah, everyone out there, be more like Jillian, do something about it. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, hey, a couple of other just quick things I wanted to pop up here. A couple of people commented. So Darmish, hello, and Darmish, hello back to you, my friend. So it's good to see you. There was another comment that Darmish talked about security, RF security being on demand, that kind of thing, and that kind of leads me down the path of some of the security implications of 5G versus 4G LTE, that kind of thing. So, not to get crazy in the details of it all, but would you say that 5G tends to be more secure than 4G LTE or less, or what are your thoughts on some of that?
So I think one of the cool things about 5G is that we actually have 5G enabled laptops. And that is really cool because they're going to be, if you're in a public setting and you can connect over 5G versus Wi-Fi, that is going to create a more secure network for you, right? Versus a public Wi-Fi setting. So that I think is something that's really neat. Dell Technologies does have 5G enabled laptops. We launched them the beginning of 2020, I want to say. So, and I'm happy to link in some good blogs around 5G security and kind of what we're looking at, but that's definitely top of mind for us as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And it's cool to know that it's baked in, to the actual equipment itself. So if you get the laptop that's got 5G enabled and all that stuff, that way it's not kind of some afterthought that it's oh yeah, let's add that kind of deal. So that's really cool. And it's good to know that security is on the front of mind of these 5G developers and the 5G thought leaders like yourself to say, hey, we can't just think about security after the fact. Let's build this into the technology, is what it sounds like. So that's encouraging too, to know that we're headed to, hopefully a more secure place, or certainly keeping up with how crazy the world can be from these attackers and vulnerabilities and all that stuff. Right. So yeah, sure. It's exciting. Well, good to go. Well, hey, I know we're down to just a couple of minutes here. These things, I say this every time. It's man, I turn around, it's bam, it's gone, just like that, all of our time. But I just wanted to say thanks again for being here and for sharing your story. Wanted to open it up if you had any kind of additional thoughts to leave everybody with respect to 5G, or even just hey, when life throws you stuff, then hit right back kind of thing. So anyway, just wanted to see if you had any kind of final thoughts.
So my final thoughts are that I truly believe that 5G is going to change the world and for the better. I think that there's a lot of really amazing use cases that can have a great impact on, saving people's lives with telemedicine, with autonomous vehicles. There's just in manufacturing, right, getting people out of dangerous places and making sure they're kind of a little bit safer and having that autonomy do the work and getting people away from dangerous places. I do see like a lot of this stuff developing, and I think that if we start looking at technology for good and seeing like what amazing things can come out of all of this, it will just make the world a better place.
Yeah. I tell you, what a great thing to just remind us all of. And we talk about that here at F5. It's one of the ethos, one of the core things that we talk about is that, we're not here just to create technology and make cool stuff. We're here to change the world for the better. And that's the underlying, foundation of what we're doing here. So there's a deeper meaning to all this stuff. So that's, I really appreciate that, that reminder. So awesome, man. Well, Jillian, this has been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate it. It's gone by way too fast. I feel like I could sit here and talk to you for 3 more hours, maybe one day. But thanks so much for everything you're doing over there at Dell and the book that you've got and the inspiration, man, with the crash and how you've recovered from that. And it's good to know that in this 5G world, we've got thought leaders like yourself that are helping lead us all in the right direction. So man, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
All righty. You have a good one. We'll see you later on. All right, everybody. Well, hey, Jillian Kaplan at Dell, that was an amazing conversation. Really appreciate her being here and just all the work that she's doing with 5G. So thanks to all of you for joining us today. It's been an amazing Security Sidebar discussion where we just get to connect. This is I always have a lot of fun just hanging out with everybody. So again, join us next week at 12:30 Pacific, where me and the man himself, Peter Silva, will be doing the DevCentral Connect show. And hey, as a reminder, if you like these things, if you want to get reminded and notified and all that, smash that subscribe button on our YouTube channel, like Peter always reminds you to. So thanks again to everybody for everything you do out in the greatest community in the world, DevCentral. We'll see you guys later.